welcome everybody at Panthera booth. We are very pleased to announce our brand new product, implant bar on magnet attachment in collaboration with Steko, a German-based company. We're super excited to talk about our new product that we believe is a revolution in the implantology. So let's talk a little about the benefit of that product. The Magnet X product is a long time research and development to create a product that will be perfect for a lot of very interesting situations. Magnet is not something new on the market. Some of the older guy and girl in the dental used to know the magnet, but one of the major problems, there was no lateral stability. We solved it with this situation. We have something that is stable and have a consistent force of attraction. We have a lateral guidance because of the shape of the magnet and the way we design it. So there's nothing that will move the prosthesis sideways, buccal, lingual. It will always stay in place. One of the interesting key features also, it is made on custom abutment. So we work directly on the head of the implant. So we can work up to 30 degrees of angulation, correct it and make everything parallel. And thanks to this technology, no need to buy multi-unit abutment. You can go straight on the implant and save a lot of money at that step already. It is always perpendicular to the occlusal plane, never in an angle. We correct the angle on the CAD/CAM software, so we make sure that everything is parallel. What is other interesting about the magnet bar, they are sealed in a titanium housing, so there's no corrosion. So people that used to work with some other magnet back in the days, they all know they had corrosion. But because of Steko way to design their magnet, they are still inside a titanium housing. So it's impossible to wear them off. It's impossible to have corrosion over the year. So this is really a great improvement. Not only that, but they're also very small. They don't require a lot of vertical space. So that is perfect for majority of edentulous case. And what is great, done the time to change nylon, to change the attachment, they will last forever. That is a revolution. Every attachment company struggle with that problem. You all know a patient that supposedly have to come every 6 months to change a nylon, but it was a beautiful day that day, they play golf instead and then come play, the denture don't stay in place. With magnet, no more that problem. It's always the same force. We've made internal testing. After 5,000 times to remove it and put it back, no change. Locator, after 6 months in a year, nylon are no good anymore. You have to change them. Every nylon have the same problem. So this is make a really, really great product. It's self-aligning, it's easy to clean, it's an easy solution. It is literally a revolution. I'm super happy to launch this product today. As you can see on our picture right here, it doesn't require a lot of space and it comes with the bar. To make sure that you understand, we have also spent a lot of time to do a complete procedure tutorial online that is available starting today. It's easy to process as any other implant bar or implant attachment. The Magnet X bar, it is specifically designed for a very important type of patient, or geriatric patient. Right now, they struggle with everything implant-based. They invest a lot of money 5 years ago. They start losing dexterity, and now they're being asked by nurse and home to remove every implant supported. And if there's one thing that I personally want to do by the end of my life, is still eat good food. Right? I see a lot of people say, yeah, you're right, Beatrice, you're right. So this is perfect for a geriatric patient. What is also perfect, think about those patients, low dexterity patients that have, I don't know, Parkinson, for an example. What we can do with them, try to remove a locator bar with Parkinson, how it can be difficult. And now let me tell you a story. 25 years ago, there was one dentist that made a revolution in the industry. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It was huge. All-on-4. You remember that? What do you think is happening with those patients 25 years later? They're old. They struggle with hygiene. With this product, we can literally convert the patient to a magnet bar and solve their problem and still use their attachment. This is a really great solution. The magnet bar also is an easy product to order. We've created an ordering system with a single click ordering. It's compatible with more than 200 implant systems and counting. You just have to ask for the 201, we're gonna add it, okay? But yes, it is compatible. Now I'm super pleased because I have the privilege to introduce Dr. Miles Cohn just in the back. He will come in 1 minute to show you the first real case that's done with this bar. So please, everybody, welcome hard Dr. Miles Cohn that will explain to us how he changed the life of a woman in USA. Thank you very much. Miles.
Thank you, Beatrice. All right, welcome everybody. I am super honored and privileged to be here speaking to you. This is my very first time in Cologne, and what a great way to kick it off by launching this new product for Panthera. I've been using Panthera since I got into my specialty of prosthodontics, and this was a procedure that was long in the making. And I remember the first email I got from Beatrice one day, a couple years back, I think. This was like during the pandemic. She sends me an email and she said, Miles, as a prosthodontist, is there something in your practice that's missing? What would you like to do? If you could have free reign to do anything you want, what would it be? And I remember I gave Beatrice a laundry list of my things that I would love to have as a prosthodontist and a lab technician. And I sent her the email, and then I sat there, and there was one thing that I didn't put on the list because I thought it was a little bit crazy, and I was like, I didn't want to get laughed at. And I said, you know, I remember from my residency going through all of the old classic and current lit, and I remember reading back in the 90s, there were all these papers about magnets. And all these like Japanese dentists and folks in Scandinavia were doing magnets, and I thought, we don't see that anymore. You see it in maxillofacial pros, but you don't see it with traditional pros, with overdentures and things anymore. So I got back on the computer and I wrote to her and I said, Beatrice, one last thing, magnets. And I left it at that. And I got a phone call a few days later and she's like, Miles, we need to fly you to Quebec City. We need to have a talk. I can't say anything more. And so that was the beginning of this whole thing. And I remember the first time when I went to the Panthera headquarters and I came in and Beatrice showed me what I'm about to show you guys, and it was pretty amazing. So for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Miles Cohn. I'm a board certified prosthodontist. I'm also a certified dental technician. So I have 1 foot at the chair, 1 foot at the bench. And so I deal with a little bit of everything. And anybody who's seen, that follows me on social media, who's seen my Instagram, you guys know that I have a deep passion for all things prosthodontics. And what's interesting is when I get DMs, when I get messages on social media from folks, they always want to know about a few different things. And it's very rarely dentures. It's very rarely removable. And I feel that we sort of have a little bit of a specialty in crisis, right? Walk around IDS this week. What are you going to see? You're going to see implants, which is what we are going to talk about, right? But you'll see things in the aesthetic zone or fully digital protocols, right? Or you'll see treatment planning implants in the aesthetic zone using fully digital protocols, but you never see removable anymore. And I think there's a few reasons why we typically don't see removable prosthetics on the main stage anymore. Few reasons. First of which is dentures are difficult, right? Nobody wants to do dentures because we learned in dental school that dentures are tough, right? And a lot of the information you got is kind of nebulous, it's outdated, a lot of it's very dogmatic. The second one, dentures aren't profitable, right? There's a real stigma associated with the edentulous patient. What's that stigma? Low socioeconomic status, right? They don't have a lot of money, they're not gonna be able to pay for it, right? So a lot of people don't wanna do dentures. And then the last one, dentures aren't sexy, right? And shame on you if you can't make a full mouth rehab look sexy. If you can't make that look sexy, how are you gonna make your canine to canine veneer case look sexy? How are you gonna make a single central look good, right? This is the original full mouth rehab. Dentures are sexy, and I'm gonna show you guys how they are. So we're gonna talk about, this is our very first patient. This is Heidi. Now, Beatrice had mentioned these, the magnet overdenture is typically for the geriatric patient. This is for a demographic that is, definitely older than me. You think about the folks that are in their mid 60s, early 70s, right? They have poor manual dexterity, but it applies to people like Heidi too, and I'm going to tell you guys why in just a minute here. So if you take a look at Heidi, she comes in. Yeah, it's looking a little shaky when she first comes in. This was how she initially presented. Heidi had rampant decay. She's got some edentulous areas. It's not looking really great. Very difficult to get photographs on Heidi at this point. Her mouth is about this big around. Very difficult to get a mirror in there. She's got angular colitis because she's got a collapsed vertical. Heidi also suffers from Sjogren's syndrome, right? And what do we know about Sjogren's? Folks that suffer from Sjogren's typically have lupus, they typically have rheumatoid arthritis, and all of those autoimmune conditions tend to run in a pack together, right? So even though Heidi doesn't have rheumatoid arthritis now, she is almost certainly going to have it as she approaches her 50s and 60s. And so what I like to look at when I get these patients that come in is I take a look at their hands, right? If it looks like they've got a bunch of grapes under their knuckles, right? Their manual dexterity is so poor. And like Beatrice said, I can't tell you in my private practice just how many patients come in and struggle to get their locator overdentures off, right? And I speak for locator, like I speak for them, and I'm telling you, I see a lot of issues with it from time to time, right? So Heidi is gonna have this issue going forward. Here's the way that she initially presents with her pan, and maybe you didn't know it from the photographs, but now you can clearly see she's edentulous in the mandible. This is the type of case we want. We are not looking for maxillary edentulous patients to do magnets on. We need a case where the vector force is going to be straight up and down over the teeth, typically in the mandible. We know the way that the mandible resorbs is much different from the maxilla. Talgren taught us this over a quarter century of studies, right? So the mandible tends to resorb, and what do we see oftentimes? When your patients come in and they've got a denture, which one do they usually have in? It's the maxillary arch, right? How often does somebody come in with their mandibular denture? They hate their mandibular dentures because they just fall right out. And the bone resorbs, and what's left is a sliver. It's a razor blade of bone. That's all that's left. So we take a look at Heidi, and when it looks this bad from the outside, usually it looks pretty bad underneath too, right? If they've got a Yugo for the body, what's the chances that they have a Ferrari engine, right? It's usually not the case. So she's got a Yugo engine as well. So Heidi's got not even failing, these are failed implants, right? So Heidi's got failed implants, and she had this kind of crummy overdenture before. It wasn't working out really well for her. And we decided that we are going to replace those implants with some new implants. This quote from William Strauss I think is so key for what we're doing here, because our patients are so rough on their teeth and they grind. This quote that says, "While the skull is the creation of God, the jaw is the work of the devil." Right? We can all agree about that. And especially during the pandemic. Anybody else witness their denture patients grinding, breaking their dentures during the pandemic? We had probably one patient a week come in with broken dentures during the pandemic. Treatment planning a case like Heidi's, there's a lot of different options. And believe me, I've done every single option that's out there. I've done the telescopes, right? That's a very European thing. Not so huge in the US, but I've done these before. Locators, again, we do locators and locator overdentures. We've done the MK1, right? The Manfred Kipp prosthesis with the attachments on a Reberk bar, right? That's another Panthera product. And also the hybrids. I've done what we would call sometimes the hybrids, right? We've done all of these things that are fixed. These all present issues for the patients going forward. And I'll tell you, when I see patients like this, the photos look great when they leave that day. At the 2-year follow-up, usually not so great, right? Old habits die hard. You think most of these patients lost their teeth because they were taking really good care of them to begin with? And I don't want to sound so cynical, but that's the truth, right? These patients didn't take care of the first set of teeth. They went bankrupt on that set. They're going to go bankrupt on this set too. They need a way to clean it. They need to be able to maintain hygiene. Right? We got to put the patient first. So edentulating a patient is something that I take very seriously. I don't like to take the teeth out if we don't have to, because that's the only permanent thing that we do in dentistry. If your patients live long enough, everything will need to be replaced. But with these magnet overdentures, one of the great things about it is that the magnets don't need to be replaced, right? And we do this all the time in our office, where we're replacing the nylons and the housings and the this and the that. And if I send my patients away, where we live in Maine, in the northeast of the United States, it gets really cold. So most of our patients are traveling to Florida, California, they're snowbirding. I want to make sure you know, that when my patients go elsewhere, they're going to be well taken care of, and they're not going to have one of these exotic prosthetics break down where the dentist, the recent graduate, has no idea what these parts and pieces are, right? With this, it's not an issue anymore. So all of Heidi's teeth come out. We end up doing the implant placement. We do the xenograft. Now, as a prosthodontist, I don't do this in my office. These were photos that I took at the surgeon's office, so I just want to be, please don't anybody ask me about the surgical procedures. I'm not really so sure. So we do 6 implants in the maxilla, and we do 4 in the mandible for Heidi. Here's the pan of her after she's had the implants placed. Final impressions, of course, and now the question is going to come up, hey man, like, can't we just scan this? Why can't we put some scan bodies in and just do a scan, right? You walk around, everything's digital, right? We're going digital. With this procedure, you still need a silicone impression. So for the folks out there that are 100% digital, I know this is going to come as like some bad news to you, but this is a procedure that you should not get so divorced from, because if you are doing a lot of dentures in your clinic like we are, at some point you have to do a reline, right? You still have to know that analog skill is really important. So you cannot do an IOS. You can't just do a scan right now. You still need to have a verified model, because as Beatrice said, attached to this verified model are going to be custom abutments that need to take into account the tissue profile, and they're all customized by the laboratory technicians at Panthera headquarters. All right, so how do we get a verified cast? So there's a few ways. Everybody here, you guys are a smart audience. You guys know how to do verified casts, right? This isn't anything new. I'll just go through this really quick. So typically, these are Straumann BLX implants that we use for Heidi. We take non-engaging temp cylinders. We put a quick scaffolding around there just with some dental floss and some resin. This is some this is a 0% expansion resin. This is a really great company called Primotech. They are out of New Jersey. No, sorry, Connecticut. I do not speak for Primotech. I'm just showing you what I use, but this is the resin that I use, and I can just make this chair side. This is the way that it looks when it's on the model. Now I try it into the mouth to make sure that there's a passive fit, and there is for Heidi. And then we, of course, have to evaluate the aesthetics. This is all the great stuff behind the scenes, but now we have to look at the aesthetics. Of course, we're using a record base and a wax rim. I want to look at the midline. There's a few other things that I want to look at, like the high smile line. These are all things that I now need to communicate to the laboratory. I also like to look at Heidi in the profile. I want to look at her lip support. I want to make sure that everything's going to look nice. Now, Heidi, again, is not the typical demographic that we're doing for a lot of these, but she is a little high maintenance, right? So typically what we get, and we don't get this from men, and I don't want to sound sexist, but it's usually the women that don't want to see, the wrinkles around their lips. They want to see like a nice full lip, right? And so going through all of these aesthetic factors, I don't use anything super fancy. I use some low-hanging fruit. We're just doing the midline with a little piece of floss, recording the high smile line with a perio probe. Don't use anything sharper than a perio probe, like a Bard Parker blade. Ask me how I know. Just doing the interalar width, again, with a couple cotton tip applicators, just really simple, easy stuff, and documenting this and sending this to my laboratory. Now there's issues, and I'm sure you guys can agree, right? Especially when you get patients coming in, and you guys went through this in dental school where they say, for your denture patients, how do you record the tooth mold? How do you select the teeth, right? And you say, well, have the patient bring in a photo of them, from back in the day. So the patients, so Heidi brings in a photo of herself when she's like 22 years old. She's 40 now, going on 41 years old, right? So this is an obvious issue, because like in the world of prosthetics, for example, if I had to make like an arm prosthetic or a leg prosthetic, right? If I had a guy come in that was 80 years old and he's like, hey, this is how I looked when I was in high school, right? So it's like, yeah, this is what your patients want their aesthetic to look like, but this is what they actually look like. So that's a big part of the patient management and managing those expectations, because I don't want Heidi's teeth to look like they did when she was 20 years old. She's not 20 years old anymore, so that becomes a big problem. Something that's more important, I think, even than the teeth, is the gingival component, right? And this is something that so many people miss, and this is something that we get requests for all the time. We get patients that come in all the time that tell me, hey doc, I don't mind the teeth, it's these damn gums. It looks like this denture came out of a vending machine, right? It looks like some bubble gum on the bottom of somebody's shoe. Can you do something about the gums? They don't like the way it looks. Do not neglect this component. It is really key. It is really, really important. So we've got the impressions, we've got our verified casts, we send that off to Panthera. Beatrice went through you the lab protocol and the script that you have to fill out. It's super, super easy. And so what we're doing here, you can see we've got the overlay. we've got a wax up that goes to the lab, and then they are going to design this bar inside that wax up, and they'll let you know if there's any kind of issues with it, whether it's like outside those boundaries, outside the borders. And this is one thing I love working about with Panthera, is that they're very quick to communicate and they keep it really clean and streamlined and easy. And so finally I make the approval for the prosthesis. It comes back to the laboratory, it comes back to my office. What you can see here, these are the 4 abutments that we have in place for the mandible, and hold that thought in your head, the 1 through 4 in a second, because each one of these abutments is customized and it needs to go in a very specific location. On top of the abutments, we have the actual magnets that screw in, and as Beatrice was showing in the video, maybe you didn't see it, there's a special tool that you'll need to unscrew these, but there's no screw hole through the top, so there's no food that's going to accumulate or get underneath there like you get with locators. Here's the silicone bar that goes on the top, and now that's going to just snap right on. And of course we're siliconing it because I don't want that bar to show through the acrylic. I want it to look really, really nice. Again, keeping in line with the aesthetics. This is the way that this silicoted bar looks. There's a few features that you'll notice about this. One of them are these little soft tissue stops that are on here. And these are really, really highly polished, and that's just going to lend some stability to the overall prosthesis. So you can kind of see how this looks from the occlusal view, and then when you look underneath, again, highly polished titanium that's just going to sit right on the tissue. It doesn't hurt the patient at all. It's blunt, it's not sharp. This is the way that it looks from the posterior, and you can see bilaterally we have a lot of stabilization, which is really, really key for these prosthetics, because even though it is like implant supported, we still want this, implant retained, we still want it to be tissue supported. So ensuring that you have a really, really good impression where you've got all the borders, the external oblique ridge, right, and the retromolar pad, which are the primary denture support areas for a mandibular prosthesis. Those are really, really key. So when you take a look at this intraorally, you'll notice on here that these magnets are numbered from 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then Panthera will send you like a little snapshot of this, like a little digital snapshot that makes sure that you put those in the correct order. Because if I put number 3 with number 2, if I swap it around, you'll figure out pretty quickly that this bar will not fit the right way. All right, and something else that you have to keep in mind, I call this is a term I came up with. I call these little 9 o'clock orientation marks. So there's these little dimples on there that are all set right at 9 o'clock. Those have to be in that exact location. Otherwise, if you spin everything around, again, the bar isn't going to fit anymore. So that's the only part about this entire process that I found to be a little bit different than what I was used to. So I just want to make that clear to you guys if you're going to try this. So we go back to our silicoted bar, and Beatrice mentioned some of the space requirements. It's not a lot, like 9 to 10 millimeters should get you, that should be just about enough. And for most patients in the mandible, because of the way that it resorbs, you're probably gonna have enough height. You don't need to do a ton of bone reduction for that. And so here's our wax up overlay. Here's the final prosthesis. Again, this is the way that it looks once it's integrated into the bar. There's those little tissue stops that are completely, that blend right in, and they're harmonious. There's the integrated bar. This is a quick little video just to show you guys how retentive this is, so you can see the way that this looks. Here it click right on. I can pick it up, give it a little shake. It just drops right in. So that is something, and anybody here who's ever done locators, you guys know, like what do your locator patients do? Or they got some other attachment and they try to put them in. How many of your patients try to bite it into place, right? They try to like bite it into place and they come in and something's broken, or the locator housings, little nylons are all kind of warped and distorted, right? With this, it's self-guiding. So for those patients that have a real limited manual dexterity, it just goes right in. There's no more guesswork anymore, and it's a lot less wear and tear on the abutments. So here's the final prosthesis at the end. Just showing some of the details. Here's Heidi. You can see your patients dress up for like their final photos. When they come in and they're getting it, they always it's like they did their make. I was like, you did not look like this when you first came in. You looked a little ragged. So she comes in, she's done herself up. I swear she did her hair too. Heidi's an attractive woman anyway, but I mean, she just went a little above and beyond for her final photo. So here's the final result at the end. It was a really, really natural look. And I just want to say, it's super easy for me to get up here and show, great before and after photos and go through all this stuff. But there is an entire team that makes it happen behind the scenes. One of the folks that helped me with this case was my good friend Josh Polanski. He's at Niche Dental Studio in New Jersey. Josh is he's a world-class ceramist. He's part of the bioemulation group. So Josh was a big instrumental part in helping us work out some of the details for this. And then, of course, my good friend Salvatore Morano, he's right here in the front, you guys. This guy is one of the top denture technicians on the planet. If you have not seen his work before, check out his Instagram account. He's absolutely phenomenal. So Salvatore did all of the prosthetics, all the removable prosthetics, and Josh helped with all sort of the implant components with this. So it really, really took a team to do this. It was a phenomenal learning experience for me. It was like wonderful being a part of this. And it was great to be kind of at the ground level, and I know as we go forward we're going to keep making improvements, and it's going to be I can't wait till I'm here 10 years from now showing where we've come over the last decade, kind of going back to like the very first case that we did. So you guys, I want to thank you for your kind attention. Thank you to Panthera, thank you to Salvatore for coming out. Here is Panthera's website. If you guys are not familiar with Panthera, but I'm sure you are. Here's my website, here's my Instagram account. If you guys have any questions, I don't think that the learning should ever stop here. Please contact me, send me a case, show me some photos, take some x-rays, let me know your questions and I'd be happy to answer those for you. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week here in Cologne. Thanks, guys. All right, thank you.